Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar on navigating cyber threats, ISO 27001 and effective security testing. I'm Alan Calder, I'm your host for this afternoon. As many of you will know, I founded IT Governance some 20 years ago, and I've been in the world of information security ever since, written a number of books, the most recent of which is the 8th edition of A Manager's Guide to ISO 27001, which is due out, I believe, at the end of April. Finally got the manuscript written and submitted, and a number of other books. With joining me today is James Pickard, who is our head of security testing here at IT Governance. James has had some 10 years of experience in testing and is able to rise to the challenges of just about any kind of infrastructure risk or threat in a way that enables us to help our clients keep themselves out of the challenging areas of being secure in today's environment. And James will be talking to us about penetration testing in the context of ISO 27001. The company, IT Governance, has, as I said, some 20 years of experience in this business of information security. We have very deep expertise in our consultants, trainers, subject matter experts. We have a comprehensive ISO 27001 products and service offering, and we have more than 12,000 customers across 3 continents. And therefore, inevitably, we've done a lot of things. We've helped more than 1,300 organizations prepare and maintain their ISO 27001 compliance. So as you would imagine, we know quite a lot about what does and doesn't work and what isn't required for organizations who are looking to have a vibrant, working, effective ISO 27001 certification. More than 15,000 ISO 27001 training course delegates, 2,500 penetration tests that we've covered over a very large number of years, and we have more than 2,000 people using our governance, risk and compliance software, and a mass of third-party certifications, all recognizing that what we do is to a very high and consistent standard. And that's also what our customers think. So Net Promoter Score approaching world-class for all of the products and services that people can buy through our websites. Our average rating by our customers sits at excellent. So our commitment to quality and quality of service to our customers is very deep and continual. Today we'll be talking about risk and reward in information security management system, the role of ISO 27001 in security testing and the importance of security testing for certified organizations, scoping in accordance with risk, best practices for security testing to ensure it aligns with your ISO 27000 requirements, and CyberComply and other options for streamlining cybersecurity processes within your information security management system. You will all have noticed that you are on mute. That's designed to try and stop background noise. That's not, though, designed to stop you asking questions. If you find that you do have questions, please, in the GoToWebinar panel, which should be on the screen in front of you, there is a bar which has got the word questions in it. If you click on that, you'll find you can type questions into that. So please do, as we're going through the webinar, if you have questions, do put them into the question bar. And then when we come to the end of the formal presentation, which will be about 35 or 40 minutes, then we will stop and we will take and deal with any questions that you have registered for us. I'll share the question with the audience, and then either James or I will answer it. So that's the plan for today. Let me kick off and get started talking really about risk and reward in the information security management system. So last year, cybersecurity took center stage as though it hadn't already been on the stage in the first place. Our own research found an alarming 8 billion records compromised, and then January this year, the breach of all breaches, 29 billion records compromised just in a single month. And the surge in data breach really is a critical juncture for organizations to reassess and reinforce their security measures. It's no longer simply about security in the tech stack, although as we'll both be saying, the tech stack is an important part of your security environment, but it's the tech stack that has to be protected and needs protection across a much wider range of controls than simply technological controls. Inevitably, the breach data includes credentials and other information that can be used to infiltrate networks. So not only is data stolen and is sold, and so all of the negative impacts of that, but it can be reused in ways that enables further attacks to be mounted. So organizations need to reassess and reinforce their security on multiple fronts, taking account of these kinds of breaches, and particularly around access rights, and the way in which once a criminal has accessed your organization, they can use what they know about people inside it to move horizontally inside the organization. So in that context, why ISO 27001? It's an information security standard that takes a management approach to information security. So it kind of recognizes that disconnecting the organization from the internet is a low risk, no reward strategy. Today is a digital environment. We all know that. So you have to be connected. Being connected and having no security controls is a very high risk, low reward strategy. You don't get more rewards because you're taking that kind of level of risk. All the evidence suggests that an unprotected website or device connected to the internet is massively infected with malware within less than 15 minutes. So ISO 27001 is about information security management. It's a systematic, risk-based approach to identifying the necessary operational, human, physical, and technological measures that help the organization to mitigate risk. So it recognizes that technology alone, technology as a control, is on its own inadequate to deal with the range of risks that organizations deal with. You need to draw on all four of those areas to have a really effective approach to risk, to building what we would call cyber defense in depth. So technical security testing has clearly got an important role to play in that, and we talk a lot about integrating technical testing within ISO 27001. It's why, as an organization where ISO 27001 is our most important area of support for clients, penetration testing is a very critical component of how we go on supporting and enabling clients to develop and improve their information security practices. So ISO 27001, a framework, a set of tools for determining what information security risks you want to take and how you might control them. So there's a balance between risk taking and risk reduction, particularly in terms of protecting the infrastructure. We all recognize that networks and the information they carry must be protected from technological threats, but the attack vector is not necessarily a technological one. It could come in any one of a number of ways, including the physical one of somebody picking up the tried and tested USB stick in the parking lot and deciding to put it into a device to see what it contains because it says on it nude photographs or something equally attractive. And that's a very good way of attackers getting information out and malware in. So the ISO 27001 framework is about protecting the infrastructure in which the organization relies, within which its critical data lives. At the heart of ISO 27001 is a requirement to do a risk assessment to identify the threats to your valuable assets and assign measures to control those risks. But it relies on having the right data to make intelligent decisions. So if you're going to decide on which vulnerabilities to deal with or which threats you want to lock down on, you need to know which of them you have. You need to be able to deal with those effectively. And while staff expertise is a good input into your risk assessment, people say, well, most organizations have this risk and that risk and these vulnerabilities. There's nothing quite like actually knowing what vulnerabilities you have and being able to work out how to deal with them. That objective data enables you to manage vulnerabilities and threats much more sensibly. And that's the whole logic of ISO 27001 as a management system standard. It is built around the recognition that an information security risk assessment driven by committed leadership, which is focused on the idea not only of identifying risks to assets, but also identifying appropriate controls, and then ensuring the controls are effective through through a series of audits, evaluations, testings, and then management review. That's clauses 9 and 10 that you see on the screen in front of you. So ISO 27001 is a standard which doesn't simply say you need to do these things to be secure. It's saying you need to approach cybersecurity in this joined up way. It's a continuing process to ensure that you continually remain secure. Remember that vulnerabilities that you don't know about today will be known next week or next month. Remember that information security threats or cyber threats which exist in 3 months' time, you don't know about today. In fact, nobody knows about today because they haven't been invented. There are many which are known about today and which will still be effective in 3 months and 6 months' time because people don't know about them, they haven't dealt with them. So the mix of what you do know and what you don't know are key components in thinking about how do you build an effective cybersecurity control environment. How do you deal with vulnerabilities that you don't know about? How do you deal with threats that you don't know about? How do you make sure that you are secure against threats you don't know about, but everybody else does know about? So all of those are components of protecting your technological infrastructure. And really the role of ISO 27001 security testing and the critical importance of these practices for organizations feels like a very good place for James Pickard to pick up and talk about the very specific controls in ISO 27001, how those play into penetration testing, and what, as owners of management systems, we can do with penetration testing to help us build our own protection. So James, over to you.
Thank you, Alan. So it's very hard for organizations to be very specific about this sort of vulnerabilities because each organization is different and they all have different important systems and different data collections and what is important to them. So it's important to apply the right characteristics of a penetration test to make sure it fits your organization. It is not one hat that fits all in this circumstance. However, it does provide a lot of guidance, especially in the Annex A controls, which I'm going to come on to cover in a little bit more detail later. So it is very much based on the organisation, your risk assessment, and the risk that you face, and on what sort of penetration testing that's relevant for yourselves. So there's also some requirements which talk about penetration testing. These mainly cover sort of technical vulnerabilities, like Alan says, patching controls, and monitoring and sort of evaluating the improvement where you've come from as well. So penetration does this a lot. So a lot of the external and infrastructure vulnerabilities will be looking for patching issues, and we'd be relating back to these and trying to exploit these in order to bypass different Annex A controls. Sort of how can we privilege escalate through these? What can we do to check or bypass access controls, and so on. So what is penetration testing? Penetration testing is an exercise where cybersecurity security experts attempt to exploit vulnerabilities in systems, processes, or people. Alan, could you move the slide on for me, please? Sorry. Essentially, so we'll be testing different measures to try and escalate privileges within the system or infrastructure or web application. The penetration testing essentially comes with a report. That's the outcome of it. You will receive a report. The reports will detail the vulnerabilities that are there, proof of concepts on how you guys can hopefully proof of concept themselves, and remediation advice on how you should remediate these vulnerabilities to overall improve your security posture. We attempt to emulate real-world attackers, so we spend a lot of time doing research, finding out latest vulnerabilities, and attempt to exploit these within our clients' environments. Like I said, there's a range of different testing methodologies out there that we follow, which are industry standard, which keep up to date and follow these latest trends in technology. So essentially, I'm going to talk about the reasons for penetration testing within ISO 27001. ISO 27001 requires organisations to meet laws and regulatory requirements or contract requirements through their ISMS. A lot of these ones, such as DORA, PCI, and some of the healthcare system services, require penetration tests to be done and performed within this way. We're often now seeing a lot of contractual requirements for penetration testing to essentially help with supplier audits and making sure that you are dealing with secure organisations. So we're seeing these being put into contracts a lot more, and we're doing a lot more testing around this. Penetration testing isn't just for identifying the vulnerabilities, but you can also add these into your risk assessment. So if we find something of value, then you can add this into your risk assessment and then place mitigating controls against them. So it's a great way that, like Alan said previously, of identifying and knowing where you are with your information security and your cyber security. And as again, last point, it's great to test it. We often find clients implement security controls in place, they believe they've got them working, and we're able to find bypasses around these, not necessarily mainly due to misconfiguration or misunderstanding of the technology. A great example of this is we do a lot of web app testing. Alongside that, we do a lot of API testing. The API functionality is generally a lot newer than the web applications, and they're not implementing the old security controls on the APIs. So what you could do as a basic user in a normal application, you're restricted by, but you could perform a lot of admin functionality as well. So it's really important that you are testing these, especially throughout, like Alan says, in the defense and depth. So you're not just testing the web app, you're also testing your API that links into the web app and mobile app as well, for example. So the new technologies are often posing new issues and new concerns for a lot of our customers. So I've been looking at the Annex A controls, and essentially looking at how we can apply penetration testing to them and what we do with it. So organization controls, we can test access controls, identity management. These can be linked to, again, web application API testing. So testing multiple user levels, testing organization to organization vulnerabilities. We often find that administrators can access another administrator's account, even though because they're not properly segregated. It also comes down to sort of build reviews as well. Can a user access too much privilege? Can they access too many files? Are they able to access independent data, excessive data? When it comes down to the people side of things, this becomes a little bit more interesting, and this is what we really enjoy doing. So there's a lot of the phishing and social engineering attacks. This is us physically either coming on site, testing your security controls. Are staff allowing tailgaters to come in? Can you follow people into the building? Can you bypass reception? Are those controls in place to stop that person coming in? That kind of falls into the physical controls as well. And there's also the remote working side of things, which can fall into sort of an external infrastructure or a remote access configuration review. This was really popular throughout COVID-19 because of the shift in working environments, the move to VPN solutions and remote access solutions. We're often finding that the people are being contacted first, which is relating to about 80% of cyber breaches, or the starting point of them, and then they're using these credentials or this information to then conduct further attacks, such as accessing a VPN and using that to then get a gateway into your environment. There are a number of technical controls, and there's a lot here to list in terms of what we're going through for penetration testing as well. But end security devices, a build review, what happens if that machine is left on a taxi or a train? What happens if that machine is stolen whilst logged in an internet cafe or a hotel? What can they do with that device? Can they escalate their privileges upwards? Is there sufficient malware protection? Can they exfiltrate data? And this sort of comes into all these kind of controls. And this is very similar again for the sort of API, the web application, the infrastructure side of testing, and it all builds together into a bigger picture. So what you find off with a lot of clients is they start by looking at the highest risk, and generally the highest risk is externally facing. So what is coming into the organization? So we start off the pen test program or the pen test journey by doing what is publicly facing. And once they become competent and they're getting repeatable and regular results from this, we then progress them into doing other tests, which then open up a whole new gateway of vulnerabilities for them. So how often should penetration testing be performed? And there's no necessarily requirement or best practice around this, but good practice would say at least annually or after a major change. Cybersecurity develops at such a rate that what you are vulnerable to today, you're going to be more vulnerable to tomorrow. So there's going to be escalating privileges, escalating vulnerabilities to affect this. And it's really important that you at least get an annual view of what your issues are, or after you've done like a major significant change to your infrastructure. Let's say you've implemented new firewalls, or you've changed your authentication mechanism, or you've added a whole new feature to your website, which then we can bring into the development cycle, where we can do spotlight tests. So we can test you annually, and then we can do a spotlight test on your new functionality. So we're not testing the whole system again, but we can just test part of it, which can help build in this continual improvement as well. So yeah, I'm probably going to back over to Alan now to talk about the scoping and budget around this.
Thank you, James. That's very helpful. So penetration testing, of course, costs money, but if you think about it, technical vulnerabilities are where you get breached. If you have technical vulnerabilities, whether it is unpatched software or unpatched hardware, that's where attackers get into the network. So fixing them is an immediate return on investment, getting to the point where actually you don't have unpatched vulnerabilities, you don't have things that attackers can get into and exploit, is an immediate return on investment. But more than that, you can't fix what you don't know about. So you might think that you know what software you've got there for what application vulnerabilities there are, but you don't necessarily know, and you don't necessarily know what attackers might be operating. So penetration testing enables you to focus budget on the areas of immediate danger. Having an external expert penetration tester testing websites, testing infrastructure, testing APIs in all the various different forms, testing at different stages in development, testing when you put new firewalls in, all of those enable you to have an external expert, test to make sure there are not vulnerabilities in there that you don't know about, but which an attacker will certainly find. Remember that attackers work on the basis of searching for vulnerabilities, not searching for particularly lucrative targets. They go after known vulnerabilities, automated scanning, find, exploit. So penetration testing enables you to focus budget on the areas of immediate danger you have. And in a budget-constrained world, that's kind of exactly what you need to be doing. So if you think about scoping tests from the point of view of value, how do we determine which information security controls we want to put in place? Part of that is about how do we test them to make sure that they're delivering the level of security that we should have. Remember, having lots and lots of security controls is not necessarily the same as being secure. Having the right number of security controls that genuinely work is where you want it to be. So risk assessment and testing controls has a critical role to play in how you decide to allocate your budget on an annual, an ongoing basis. It enables you to make informed choices about optimizing security. All organizations have limited budgets that you can afford to invest in cybersecurity. You want to make sure you get the best out of that, and you want to also leverage risk intelligence to make sure that how you're planning your investment works effectively for you. And risk intelligence is the focus on an understanding of the way in which cyber threats are developing, what kinds of vulnerabilities are being exploited, what kinds of attack vectors vectors are coming in. And those are all the kinds of areas that are part of the natural expertise of penetration testing teams. So penetration testing is a key component in helping organizations make effective decisions in managing risk. It gives you a clear idea of how effective the controls are that you've put in place, whether they're doing the job they should be, what level of security you have. It enables you to say to yourself, well, this set of controls is working exactly as it should. Where are the other vectors that attackers could get in? What do we spend on reducing the risk in those areas? So those insights enable you to guide your security investments, prioritize actions based on the potential impacts on the organization, the cost benefit analysis, and that also then means that you've got hard data to educate stakeholders on the cost of risks versus the value of security measures, all of which is an important part of how you take security forward. Because remember, in the long run, the only things that are certain are cyber attacks, death, and taxes. So you need to be minimizing unnecessary investment in cybersecurity controls, because you're going to have to go on investing significantly in it. So you want to make sure your investment is focused on the areas that are going to be most useful. So how do you do that? What are the best practices for security testing? And there are essentially 2 or 3 points to make. The first is that you need to regularly update your risk assessment. Many organizations will put a lot of effort into the first time they do an ISO 27001 risk assessment and then not turn to it again for another 2 or 3 years, like when the recertification audit comes around, you suddenly go, well, we better review our risk assessment. That's not so smart. You should be reviewing risk assessment at least annually, and whenever there are any major changes, including changes in the risk environment. You need to make sure that when a new threat emerges, you go and have a look at your risk assessment and say, did we account for this? What have we done? How would we deal with that? And that means that you should be ensuring that you've got a proper asset-based risk assessment, proper inventory of assets, so you've got comprehensive coverage of all of the information assets in the way in which you scope your penetration test. No point saying, well, we'll leave one bit of our infrastructure out to save some money, because that'll be the way that attackers get into the network. You want to document your testing methodologies, or work with a testing company which will give you documented methodologies so you understand what's happening, you understand what's being tested and what isn't. You want to be able to have plans that target specific risks, so not just hey, do a penetration test, but we have specific concerns around these areas. We have specific controls we want to make sure they're working as they should be, and then you should take the risk results and integrate them into your ongoing continual improvement strategy. Cybersecurity is about continual improvement, and using test results to drive continual improvement is a smart thing to do. 2 ways, maybe 3, that you can address penetration testing requirements. The first is you train your own staff. That makes sense. You've got people who are continually available. If they understand how to carry out a penetration test, use tools that are available to them, they've got the right kind of skills and competences, then you can have tests carried out on a regular basis as and when you need them. That's one option. Another option is to hire an external penetration testing firm who do this all the time. They'll be able to come and do a thorough penetration test for you. Or option 3 is you combine in-house and external expertise as part of a strategic approach to how you test security controls. So let me talk a bit more about each of those. Training your own people, very cost efficient. Your own staff obviously going to be less expensive than hiring external testers, because it's a new skill set for them, gives them career progression. They believe that they're making improvements in their own skills and in enjoyment of life and of what they do. You've got expertise on tap to be able to do a security assessment as and when you need it, and you can drive continuous improvement effectively. So lots of obvious benefits. Key drawback, of course, is that penetration testers can be a bit close to the action, and you have a segregation of duties issues. In DORA, for instance, there is a clear requirement that if you're using in-house penetration testers, they do not report to whoever is responsible for the IT infrastructure, because there is a crossover in in responsibilities that is not sensible. So your second option, hire external penetration testers. Smart move to do. Experienced professionals. You're gaining access to testers with specialized expertise and experience. They're doing this all the time across a whole range of environments. Their continual professional development is only focused on cybersecurity attackers and vulnerabilities and defenses. They know what's going on, what the latest attack looks like, what the latest vulnerability looks like, how to mitigate those. So you get cutting edge insight with knowledge of the latest cybersecurity challenges and trends that you can apply to deal with today's issues. And it's objective. Your evaluation, the evaluation you get from an external company is an objective and unbiased evaluation of your security posture. It's carried out professionally. They're not internal people looking to please or do anything like that. It's a completely external approach. Increasingly, we find our clients doing a mix of both. They want the benefit of on-tap in-house testing experience because that means that they can test on a ad hoc basis. They don't have to book it in advance. They go, okay, can you run a test on this application? They can stay right on top of what they're doing. But they also bring in external testers, typically on an annual or a biannual basis, to do a comprehensive test, which is going to be objective, but also it's a good way of making sure that the internal testers are up to the mark, because you want to make sure that internal testers, what they're finding is exactly what the external testers are finding. So the balanced approach is a good way of optimizing costs while ensuring top-notch penetration testing coverage. And penetration testing is just one part of an ongoing internal audit and management review. Remember, clause 9 of the management system says that all controls and the whole management system must be subject to continual review and continual monitoring and continual improvement. So internal audits is part of that. Penetration testing is a form of internal audit. It's not just, you think of internal audit as being testing whether you're complying with the documentation, but internal audit is also security testing. It's part of the broader set of monitoring whether the risk decisions you've made are being effective in driving the level of improvement in security that you set out to achieve. And all of that information from internal audits, from security testing, internal, external, all of that feeds into management review. And management review is typically going to take place at least once a year, more often if you have major changes. But that, which includes top-level executives, a good way of demonstrating top management support for the ISMS, is going to review the findings of penetration tests and is going to flow into what is the risk treatment plan or the changes to the risk treatment plan, and so informs management as they think about what they're going to need to do in terms of budget for the next financial year, because they're aware of what the findings are in terms of current known and unknown and emerging vulnerabilities and threats. External auditors, whether doing surveillance visits or third-party penetration testers, are providing the validation, the robustness that enables you to really rely on all of the information that you have. So the combination of internal, external audit and testing is a key part of building robust cyber defense in depth inside the organization, building continual improvement, ensuring that as an organization you continue to be able to trade profitably and effectively while competitors are struggling. And part of that balanced approach is because ISO 27001 recognizes that simply putting technological controls in place is not enough. So the solution is beyond the tech stack. It's people, process, products and technology, and drawing on controls that enable you to deal effectively with all of those areas is an important part of what you need to do as you build cyber defense in depth, recognizing that confidentiality, integrity, and availability are the cornerstones of an information security management system in which cyber and privacy risks are different sides of the same coin. Any attack on personal data almost invariably involves a cyber breach. A cyber breach almost invariably involves compromise of personal data. So one way or the other, you find yourself dealing with both business and regulatory impacts through the lack of dealing with that effectively. So think about cyber defense in depth. Think about the role of scanning and penetration testing at the detect layer. That's level 3 of a defense in depth management defense in-depth system, builds into effective incident management, breach management, business continuity planning, all part of the continual process of genuine cyber defense in-depth. I just want to briefly mention CyberComply because it's a platform that enables you to ensure that penetration testing fits into a broader whole. So there are many other standards and frameworks that require penetration testing. DORA is in Europe only the most recent. It requires financial sector organizations to carry out regular penetration testing and vulnerability scanning. What CyberComply as a platform, it's a cloud-based security compliance platform, enables you to do is to tie together the requirements of multiple frameworks and standards so that when you have for instance, a penetration test done, it's a penetration test that delivers on the requirements of multiple standards. It's not you do a DORA penetration test 1 month and you do an ISO 27001 penetration test the next month. You do a penetration test that is designed to meet the requirements of multiple standards and frameworks. And CyberComply, which is a multi-standard, multi-framework, multi-functional compliance platform, enables you to do exactly that. And the other reason I'm mentioning it is because for those of you who are interested in automating compliance, there is in our special launch offer a special pricing which gets you all of the features, all of the functionality, but you've got to have taken it up by the 31st of March, and that's kind of Christian Western Easter, so you need to think about it ahead of that. But it's and you can look at the slides when they come out, but it's a key offer worthwhile taking up that a number of customers have already gone on record as saying they think it makes a huge difference to their own business. So, we kind of say, don't risk it, cyber comply it, and we say that in a context where IT governance can help you much more broadly. So whether it's training, so certified ethical hacking is, as you know, another word for penetration testing. We have a range of certified ethical hacking training courses, which you can do both online and on a self-paced basis. We have a range of penetration testing offers that you can draw down. You can draw any mix of those. When you get the slides, which will go out, I think they're probably they're in the handouts already. You can draw on the slides already. You can click through and you can find out more about any one of those offerings. And we can put together any mix of penetration testing, training, whatever combination suits you on a strategic basis. So do talk to us about how we can help you do that. And of course, ISO 27001 is at the heart of everything we do. Using CyberComply, we can now help organizations get certification ready in between 8 and 12 weeks from start, where we do pretty well all of the heavy lifting, and you get something which enables you to meet the requirements of ISO 27001, pull in all of the additional penetration testing and so on that you need as and when you need it, but to do that in double quick time. So that brings me to the end of what we planned to say, and that takes us therefore into the business of questions. So as I said at the beginning, there is a questions panel on in your GoToWebinar panel. If you have questions, please do type them into the panel, and then as you have questions, I'll pick up any that there are. I'll read the question out, and then either James or I will answer the question, and like that. So I'll take a pause for those of you who have questions, just to put them in the question panel. So I have been how long have you both been in the industry is the question. I've been in this industry since 1997, when I led the first organization that was certified to what was then BS 7799. James has been in this industry for well over 10 years, I think, James. You did a...
Yeah, I started in 2011 as a security consultant.
So quite a long time between the two of us. And unless there are any other questions, I'm going to deduce that what we've said has been useful and comprehensive. So folks, thank you all for joining the webinar today. I hope it has been genuinely useful. Please do go on to any one of our websites. You can access a whole range of service, and above all, penetration testing training. There is a question. How does penetration testing work for companies with multiple sites? Is a cracking good question, and I've got an answer, but James, that feels like a good question for you. How does penetration testing work for companies with multiple sites?
So I'm going to ask a question back. If you want to say back, that's fine. We can do it at multiple sites. We can visit multiple sites, that's absolutely fine. A lot of companies also have connections between the sites, so we can visit one site to cover both sites, depending on your configuration.
And your internet exposure tends to be through a single firewall and a single connection, so you could be testing multiple sites through a single interface with the internet. So the answer, I think, to put it another way, is that we talk to the client, we put together a scope, we understand how things work, and then we get on with doing the testing in a way that's cost effective for you. Can a pen test used for CE Plus also be applied to ISO 27001? Yes, it's entirely a matter of your own risk assessment. Remember, a pen test for Cyber Essentials Plus is not a very substantial penetration test. It's only focused on a very limited scope. It's not looking at a comprehensive range of assets and areas of risk. It's focused on the narrow area that Cyber Essentials is focused on. But if that's all you see as being your risk, then it meets the requirements of ISO 27001. I would, though, before encouraging you to rely on that, encourage you to go away and have a good look at what the scope of your management system is and what the scope of the assets that your management system is covering are, and then make sure that you're testing the controls that are protecting those assets appropriately. So CyberComply doesn't integrate with pen test tools, but will enable orgs to identify risks against assets and identify a pen test as a means to verify the control. Any issues can be tracked and managed by CyberComply. Yes, that's correct. So a penetration test report will get delivered into CyberComply. You'll be able to upload the data. It will go into your risk assessment. It will track as part of your continual improvement. CyberComply is a governance, compliance, and risk management tool, so it will enable you to do that. And at some point, APIs will enable pen testing results to be fed directly into CyberComply. But right now, it's you get a pen test done, whether by your own staff or an external company, and you upload the report into CyberComply and get on with dealing with the issues in terms of remediation. So anything you do need from us, folks, do follow up, telephone, email, website, any one of those things will find us. I do hope the webinar has been genuinely useful, and I hope you all have a very secure and safe rest of this week and rest of this month. Thank you all for being here today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.